Joining us from our bureau is former U.S. Senator from Georgia and Vietnam veteran Max Cleland. He's out with a new book called The Heart of a Patriot, How I Found the Courage to Survive Vietnam, Walter Reed and Karl Rove. Welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
For those who aren't familiar, could you please recount what happened with that grenade explosion in Vietnam? Because that's really the beginning of this story in a way.
Yeah, in many ways it is. What happens to you in war continues in your life. You're able to overcome it, you're able to deal with it. But whether you're on the ground in Iraq or Afghanistan or Pakistan or whatever, or Vietnam, you carry the war with you and you bring it home. That's the message that I got out of all of this. Basically, I was getting off a helicopter and a young man who was brand new in country had loosened the pins on his grenades. One fell off on the ground. I was involved in breaking the siege of Khe Sanh, a signal moment in American history, and we were able to break that siege. But I reached for the grenade. I didn't know it was live. I reached for it with my right hand and it blew up. So I'm lucky to be here in many ways. I was in Walter Reed in 1968, and then I went back with a severe depression, basically due to post-traumatic stress disorder, or what I call post-war disorder, in terms of stress and anxiety, back in the 2003 when I lost my race for the Senate in 2002.
Well, let's remind people what happened in between the two Walter Reed stints. You were a Vietnam veteran, of course. You were the first Vietnam veteran in the Georgia State Senate. You became head of the VA under President Carter, and you became a U.S. Senator. And then there was this nasty re-election which you lost, and is that the tipping point in a way for you? Do you feel that drove you back into the post-traumatic stress situation?
Yes, because I had, through most of my adult life, been very fortunate to be involved in public service, public life, and my elections carried me through. And being appointed head of the VA by President Carter carried me through. It was my way of coping. What I found after losing in 2002 was, and the cranking up of the Iraq War, threw me right back in war. I experienced it. I went through it again. I wound up with massive anxiety and wound up with massive PTSD at Walter Reed again. In terms of my counseling, I've been there for several years. All hearkening back to the original sense of being blown up, laying there on the battlefield, bleeding and dying, and with a powerful sense of powerlessness and hopelessness.
How did you pull out of it? I know you did, as you say, you spent a lot of time with Walter Reed, and you were exposed to some of today's veterans going through similar traumas.
Yeah, not only are they going through similar traumas, war is war, but to feel that your war is increasingly meaningless, and that your muddy boots on the ground, so to speak, are not producing the result that you hoped they would produce, that compromises your readjustment in any case. But yes, I wound up back in Walter Reed 40 years later, dealing with my own stuff from my war with the veterans from Iraq and Afghanistan. I want to thank the gentleman for making the focus Pakistan rather than Afghanistan. In many ways, our issue is with Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda is in Pakistan. Bin Laden is probably there. Al-Qaeda Central is there. Those are the targets that we need to go after. That is our military objective, to kill or capture them. Now, when you're in the swamp, you forget that your real purpose is to kill the alligators. That is really Afghanistan and Pakistan for me in a nutshell.
You brought it up. A quick comment on, do you think 40,000 additional troops is the way to go in Afghanistan?
If it's still for counterinsurgency, no. But if it's to train the Afghans to help defend their own country against the Taliban, yes. I wouldn't add necessarily more troops in Afghanistan. What I would do is shift the focus from counterinsurgency, which is strategically a defensive strategy, to an offensive strategy, counterterrorism in Pakistan, working with the Pakistanis. We are on the same team, the United States, NATO, and the Pakistani government and its people, in effect defending that country, defending their nuclear weapon program, and going after Al-Qaeda. That's what we should be all about.
All right, and hopefully we have time to address two tidbits from your book that I wanted to get to. One of the juicier points, some would say, is a former aide of yours was in the same intern class as Monica Lewinsky. Tell me if I've got this right. He claims he was used as a cover of sorts to get her into the White House during her affair with President Clinton. How'd you find out about that? Did I describe it correctly?
You described it correctly. And my friend Trey Ragsdale, who was my staffer, I did not know he was really president of that internship class until the White House internship class, until later, till the Monica Lewinsky scandal broke out. But then he was used, quite frankly, to get her from the executive office building into the West Wing. And then they say, as they say, the rest is history.
Were you kind of horrified by that, or by?
Yeah, I was shocked by it. I mean, first of all, I was shocked by the whole thing. But I didn't realize that a dear friend of mine had been a beard or a cover for Monica as she wanted to get into the West Wing.
All right, another thing that you've written about in your book is you say you came down with mononucleosis after Senator Pete Domenici would not allow you to wear a green scarf around your neck on the Senate floor. What happened?
Oh, well, I came down with mononucleosis and I didn't know it. I was freezing. And I was trying to get warm, and so I was wearing some kind of green scarf, and a friend of mine said that violates Senate decorum. So, you know, that's the way the Senate is sometimes.
Did you ever get an apology from him?
No, I don't need an apology from him.
All right, and would you lastly explain the part of your title? You've explained pretty much so far the part about Vietnam and Walter Reed, but how I found the courage to survive Karl Rove.
Yeah.
What does that refer to?
It means that when you have weak positives, as Karl Rove had, and usually has when he represents the right-wing candidates, then when they go up against somebody that has real military service, like McCain, me, or Kerry, then his strategy is not just to run negative character assassination ads, but to go after that military service. That crosses the line. As Chuck Hagel once told me, former senator from Nebraska, who was a fellow Vietnam veteran, wounded, said to me, some things are more important than politics. And one of those things is military service. It should be left alone in a campaign. If you have it, you have it. If you don't have it, you don't have it. And the voters will make a judgment.
Well, thank you very much. And on a personal note, my husband is a former Vietnam Army combat veteran, and I'm sure he would thank you for your service.
Thank you very much.
And thanks for joining us.